think many people that are presenting here, because we're artists first. We started playing music together when we were very young. I played piano and Hays played guitar. Then we got more into electronic music and composing and recording our own music. And Hays is an incredible producer and engineer, and so we worked together on music for years and years. And under Blue Brain, we've done everything from we play live and release normal albums, but we've also done film scores and sound installations, boombox orchestras, dance performances, all natures of weird kind of events and happenings and different experiments, all of which we can't really get into today. But we do want to talk to you about one that we've worked on, which is the idea of location-aware music. Location-aware music. So this all started about 2 years ago. We were driving back from a concert we had in New York City. And we had a conversation that I think a number of you have probably had, at least in our experience talking about what we do. A lot of people have had the same conversation. And the conversation went something like this. Wouldn't it be cool if you could have your own personal soundtrack with you as you walked around? I think we've all had those moments where you're walking and you're listening to your iPod and the perfect song comes on right as you hit your stride, or maybe you're driving and when you pull into the driveway the song ends, and it feels like it's perfectly timed for you. It feels like it was made that way. And we kind of talked about if that would be possible to engineer that sort of experience. Meanwhile, we were seeing this sort of explosion in the app world. The third-party developers were making incredible new apps for things, everything from gaming to productivity. But it seemed like in the music world, we weren't seeing that yet. There were really cool apps that helped you create music. There were artists that were putting out normal CDs and then putting out games or tour schedules, that kind of thing through the apps, but nobody seemed to be creating music in a new way using these new tools. So that was sort of the beginning. Those two conversations kind of led us to what would become the National Mall, which is an album we released last year. And I call it an album first and foremost because that's what it is. It's music that we wrote and recorded. But the difference between this and a normal, let's call it linear album or CD or vinyl, is that the only way to hear this album, the format that this album is available in is the iPhone. It's available as an iPhone app. And the reason that is because this album uses GPS as a central part of the listening experience. Now, for those of you that don't know what the National Mall is the park in Washington, D.C., where all of the monuments and the White House and all of that is. So we're not talking about a shopping mall here. The National Mall, so that's the name of the album and that's the name of the park. The reason it's called that is because this is an album that can only be listened to in the confines of that park. So, how does this work? Well, as you walk around the mall, it's musically tagged. This is a very early sketch of the music. It's musically tagged with hundreds and hundreds of various musical nodes or segments that as you traverse the landscape, the music seamlessly changes as you move around. This is what it looks like on the actual phone. So that's kind of the general overview. Hays is going to explain a little bit more about what this experience actually kind of feels like and when you're down there.
Yeah, so like Ryan said, central to location-aware music is the idea of GPS, and using that as you navigate the landscape, you're navigating basically what is a musical landscape. So to give you two examples, this is the Washington Monument here. It's based on top of this hill. It's a very gentle slope. As you walk up it, it's this very dramatic view. And the closer you get, it just soars atop you. And I think as composers, we're excited to see how do you sort of embody what this is and what it means in a way that really resonates musically with what the space means to us physically. And what we came up with was Excuse me.
Well, when you start at the base of the hill, the first thing you're hearing is a single piano and a cello. And as you walk up the hill, you take a few more steps, and a violin comes in, all part of the same piece of music. And then you go a bit further, and what comes next?
Then violins and
more violins, a choir, and literally when you're standing right next to this giant obelisk, it's drums and fireworks, and it's totally out of control. But that happens at your own pace. However long it takes you to get there is how long that's going to go on for. But then if you walk in the reverse direction, that unfolds in reverse. So it really is a choose-your-own adventure of an album. And anywhere you walk in this landscape, that's a picture of the Capitol building, works. Here's a little short video that kind of demonstrates this. So what you're watching right now, as this girl so aptly demonstrates, is these different locations that she's going to. This is what you would hear if you were in that location. So this isn't a playlist. This is not a selection of 3-minute songs that you can hear wherever you are within the park. This is a dynamically changing piece of music that, depending on where you are, changes. Here, this is the FDR Memorial, which is also a water base, and we wanted it to sound sort of like a serene kind of harp and that kind of thing. This is watching the monument that Hays was talking about. This explosion here is what you're hearing. This moment. That sort of dynamic what you hear when you're right up against it. Zones that are Easter eggs. For example, you saw the carousel with the horses. If you walk up next to that, you're hearing the sound of horses in your headphones. So it has this sort of, while there are musical passages that one goes into the other and certain keys have to match, there's also different moments where it's sort of a heightened sense of reality. The audio that you're listening to really enhances that. So we released that about a year ago now, almost to the day. And shortly after releasing it, well, it got some press. It got some really cool attention. Probably the thing I'm most proud of is that the National Mall was included in, so the Washington Post puts out every year their top 10 albums of the year list. And ours last year was number 6, which is, really exciting regardless of what the format of the release was, but it was pretty cool. This is the first time an app had ever been included as a top album of the year. But anyways, after the National Mall came out, we knew that we needed to start working on the next one, which is Central Park in New York, which is a completely different challenge as far as figuring out how to make this work. Now, for one, the park is enormously bigger. I mean, I think it's about 3 times bigger than the National Mall. And people move very differently in it. The National Mall is a long, almost a linear park, and this one, there's paths that sort of wind through, and it's, there's so many different ways that people can move. So we really had to study how people were moving in this very vast park. And so we would, the normal recording process of an album is you record a song in the studio and then it goes on a CD. For us, we had to record the music, plug it into the app, walk around the park taking notes, looking like absolute crazy people walking in circles. And that was the process. And so that was released last fall. And that got some press. This is from the New York Times, which was really exciting for us. And then the third one we did, we were asked by the festival South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, to make one for the grounds of the festival. And that was cool because that was actually an urban one. The other two had been in parks. So this one we tagged music throughout the streets. So as you go down different blocks, the music changes that way. And that was an exciting one as well. There's the map of that. And the next one we're working on, which is the biggest one we've taken on, is one for a car, a driving app that would be the length of California 1, which is a highway that stretches all the way up the Pacific coast. So as you drive, the music changes depending on which direction you're going and the speed you're going at. So for us, this has been a really exciting process as composers because it's a completely new way to think about writing music and composing music. And I think for listeners, I think it's a different way to experience it altogether. I think there was somebody who spoke during education earlier who said it really well, that he worries that what's happened, that's what the potential that he sees in the app world might not be something that the education world really understands. That they might be using, he fears that like the publishing world, with touch press being an exception, of course, that he fears that they'll use this new technology to perpetuate an old model. And we kind of feel the same way. And we're excited to see more and more artists get excited about creating music with these totally new parameters and these new possibilities that have never been possible before. So that's what we're excited about, and we look forward to sharing more of these kind of ideas with you in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks.